So Sophie Cunningham is one of the biggest names in the WNBA. And as well as that, she's also one of the best glue guys, role players in the entire league.
This is absolutely wild. Caitlin Clark. She did not see this one coming. Just when the Indiana Fever were finally starting to build momentum, finding their groove on the court, Sophie Cunningham went and dropped a bombshell. The entire locker room felt the aftershock. And honestly, so did the rest of the WNBA world. It flipped everything upside down in an instant.
Sounds like the Indiana Fever are not going to keep Sophie Cunningham. It does sound like the Fever are not going to keep her. From her podcast, a lot of the time she'd been mentioning the Fever. And in the most recent podcast, she did not mention the Fever.
You're not going to believe this, but during her latest podcast episode, Sophie, the sharpshooting forward everyone knows and respects, casually hinted that she might be suiting up for a different team next season. Fans were absolutely floored. I mean, how could one of the most dedicated and hardest working players even think about leaving? But here's where it gets deeper. If Sophie's hint turns out to be real, this isn't just about her next move. It could actually expose a much bigger issue quietly simmering inside the Indiana Fever organization.
So Sophie Cunningham is one of the biggest names in the WNBA. And as well as that, she's also one of the best glue guys, role players in the entire league.
The podcast began just like any other. Some laughs, lighthearted chatter, a few personal stories. Then out of nowhere, Sophie Cunningham dropped a line that made every Caitlin Clark fan stop scrolling. She said, quote, "The next team I play for, I want a bigger contract so I can finally buy a house and get cozy." And she didn't say it once. She repeated it. Her tone was confident, deliberate, and detached, like she already knew her days in Indiana were numbered. This wasn't a slip-up or a joke. You could even hear the shock from others on the show as they reacted, realizing how big that statement was. "Wow, that's crazy," one of them said. Now, it could be the Liberty, the Lynx, or even a team we haven't thought of yet. But here's the twist. Sophie had been one of the Fever's loudest believers. She'd praised Caitlin Clark's leadership, Aaliyah Boston's maturity, and the team's chemistry, even when things weren't going smoothly. She once called Indiana her home. But this time, that spark was gone. It sounded like she'd already packed her bags emotionally. No shoutouts, no hopeful talk about next season. Just quiet resignation where passion used to be. Fans noticed instantly, flooding social media with theories. Had management already told her she wasn't part of the long-term plan? Or was she sending a subtle message to boost her contract talks? Whatever the case, the meaning was crystal clear.
What's the 8th pick for a rental of a player that is coming off the best season of her career in her 20s that they don't want to keep? Like, this is the dumbest thing I think I've seen a team do.
By that point, it felt like she had already closed that chapter, and fans could sense it instantly. This wasn't just a player talking about financial goals or stability. It sounded like a farewell hidden in plain sight. But the real question here isn't why Sophie might be leaving. It's why the Fever, knowing what she brings, would even consider letting her go at all.
Like, genuinely. They traded 4 years of Sinai Rivers, and by the way, the Fever wouldn't have drafted Sinai Rivers. The Fever would not have drafted Sinai Rivers. The Fever are dumbasses. They would have drafted somebody else. But losing Sophie Cunningham for money reasons is not a smart thing to do.
To really understand why Sophie Cunningham's potential departure hits so hard, we need to rewind to the trade that brought her to Indiana in the first place. Here's the thing. The Fever actually traded away their number 8 overall draft pick to get her. That decision stunned analysts across the board. Giving up a top 8 pick is massive, especially in a league built on deep, affordable rookie talent. But Indiana's front office made it clear. They were focused on winning now, not later. They wanted a proven shooter, a vocal leader, and someone who could help Caitlin Clark transition smoothly into the league from day one. That's exactly why they pulled the trigger.
For not keeping Sophie Cunningham is if Lexi Hull wants a max. An unpopular opinion, Sophie's better than Lexi. But it's close enough that fair enough Lexi's younger. But I'm like, Lexi's not worth a max either. Like, if you're stuck in a situation where you've got two wings that are not max contract players looking for max contracts, you have to pick one or the other, you're kind of screwed.
To be fair, for a while, that trade looked like a masterstroke. Sophie delivered on every single front. She filled her role perfectly, brought relentless energy on defense, and quickly became a fan favorite for her toughness and selfless attitude. She was the kind of player who made things easier for Clark and Boston, someone who didn't care about headlines, just wins. But now, barely a year later, reports suggest the Fever might actually let her leave for nothing. The same player they spent a first rounder to acquire could walk away without any return. Fans are livid. Social media is in meltdown mode, and even loyal Fever supporters are calling this potential move a complete disaster.
She's willing to take any role. And now she's talking about my next team. This sounds like a podcast of somebody that has just been told by the organization, we are not keeping you. Or, if this is what you want, we're not offering you what you want.
Analysts agree, saying this trade could go down as one of the worst in franchise history if she's not re-signed. Because when you give up a major draft asset for just a one-year rental, you're not only losing a player, you're burning your own credibility. Worse yet, the front office looks completely unprepared. There's no replacement lined up, no visible plan to fill her impact, and no real sign of active contract talks. It's like they didn't expect her to shine this bright. Or worse, they underestimated how vital she'd become to the locker room. If that's the case, Indiana didn't just mishandle a trade, they completely misread the soul of their team. But here's the thing, Sophie's subtle goodbye points to something far deeper than contracts or cap space. There's a growing belief that under head coach Stephanie White, the Fever system just isn't clicking the way it should. For all of Caitlin Clark's brilliance and Aaliyah Boston's dominance, too many other players look stuck, unsure of their roles, or simply losing confidence. Analysts have been sounding alarms for months, claiming the Fever's development approach isn't working. And Sophie's recent tone might be the strongest evidence yet that frustration inside the team is reaching a breaking point. Take KK Timpson, for example. The organization hoped she'd become a solid rotation piece, but instead, she's regressed. Even overseas, her play has been inconsistent. That's not just on her. That's a development problem. When your bench fails to progress, your veterans get overloaded. Sophie saw that firsthand all season, playing through pain, guarding top scorers, and still showing up every night. Yet when extension talks rolled around, nothing. Complete silence. Caitlin Clark may thrive in chaos, turning broken plays into brilliance. But even her intensity can't mask a lack of structure. Rotations were erratic, roles shifted weekly, and the game plan often looked improvised instead of intentional. For a pro like Sophie, that chaos wears you down. So, when she mentioned wanting to find a home, it didn't sound greedy. It sounded tired. The words of someone exhausted by uncertainty. And that's the deeper problem. If the Fever can't create stability for veterans like her, what hope is there for the younger players trying to grow? Once you peel away the polite press quotes, the issue becomes clear. It's about respect and hierarchy. Sophie wants to be valued for what she's proven on the floor. But the Fever seem torn between rewarding her and protecting bloated deals they've already signed. Insiders say Indiana's cap space is razor thin, Natasha Howard's on a max deal, and Lexi Hull's extension is coming up. That leaves the team boxed in. Both players are solid, sure, but the numbers speak for themselves. Sophie's efficiency and spacing changed games. She hit over 40% from three, locked down on defense, and never demanded touches. Yet somehow, she's the one on the chopping block. And for Fever fans, that feels completely upside down. And as the dust settles, one question still echoes through every corner of the WNBA world. How did it come to this? How did a team that once looked full of promise and unity find itself standing on the edge of losing one of its most passionate players? Sophie Cunningham didn't just bring numbers to the court. She brought heart, grit, and a fire that sparked every time she touched the ball. Her connection with the fans, her chemistry with Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston, it all meant something. It was the foundation of hope that the Fever were building on. But now, that foundation is starting to crack. What we're seeing isn't just a story about contracts or cap space. It's about respect, leadership, and how organizations value the people who give them everything night after night. Because behind the headlines, behind the stats, there's a human story, one of loyalty, sacrifice, and a player who might be realizing that sometimes hard work and heart just aren't enough to guarantee a place to call home. If Sophie Cunningham walks away, it won't just be a loss on the stat sheet, it'll be a statement. A statement about how much the system still needs to change, how players are demanding more than empty promises, and how the WNBA's culture of development and trust must evolve. And maybe, just maybe, her story will be the spark that forces that change. So, as we wait to see what happens next, whether she stays, signs elsewhere, or shocks us all again, one thing is certain: Sophie Cunningham has already left her mark. She's reminded us that even in a league filled with stars and headlines, it's the players who stand tall through uncertainty that truly define the game. What do you think? Should Indiana fight to keep her? Or is it time for Sophie to find a new home where her value is truly recognized? Let us know your thoughts down below. And don't forget, hit that like button. Share this story with a friend, and subscribe to Talk Narrative for more powerful breakdowns, behind-the-scenes stories, and the moments that redefine sports history. Because sometimes the real drama doesn't happen off the court. It happens in the choices that change everything.